everyone, welcome to Marie's Scrappy Creations, where we sew the scraps of your life into beautiful creations. This week is a simple, straightforward, just as easy as pie tutorial. I had a couple of my subscribers and members of my Facebook group who wanted to see a demonstration of a lace zipper. Now you can go practically anywhere on the internet and find this. But I wanted to have a little bit of fun with it too, right? We do our own thing, right? It might be the same. Well, actually it isn't. I do something just a little bit different than everyone else. Of course, leave it to me. But let me show you what we're going to make. Now this is the one that I made to show you guys. I just took some scraps of things I'd been cutting all morning and I sewed them together to make a lace front. You can see the lace zippered bag. Nice pretty red lining. This is the one we're going to make together. Now you don't need a large piece of fabric. You can use whatever size piece of fabric you have on hand or whatever size you sew your scraps into. Because as you can see, it adds a lot of visual interest to just throw some scraps together. But you know me, I love scraps. Any way around it, I love scraps. So if you would like to give these a try, I hope you stick around today. And if you like what you see, please be sure to click the like button. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe. Okay, let's go take a look and see how we're going to do this. Let's go have some fun. All right, so to get started, I wanted to tell you what I used. I used a zipper foot, a 1/4 inch foot, and just a regular presser foot that comes with your sewing machine, just so that you can make a wider seam allowance, like a 1/2 inch. You're going to need to have that. Okay, now I'm using a lace zipper, and this is way longer than what I need it to be. Okay, I would say a 12 inch for the size bag I'm making would suffice. You want it to be a little wider than what your bag is, so whatever size you're going to cut your bag at, you can determine from there. Now, this fabric with the cherries on it is my outer fabric. Now, I cut this at 10 inches by 16 inches. And what I want you to remember about this, because you can cut this to any width and length that you want, you're going to lose 3/4 of an inch on each side. So 1.5 inches right off the bat. So because I wanted my bag to finish out at approximately 8.5 inches, that's why I started with 10 inches wide. All right, so we've got 10 by 16. And then we need a lining piece. Now my lining is slightly smaller by 1/4 of an inch. And the reason that is because when you fold this in, if you don't take that 1/4 inch off, you're going to have a little bit of bulk inside. I've tried numerous bags like this from different people, and they always measure them the same, and I always end up with something really wrong on the lining. So we're going to go a 1/4 inch shorter. So this one ended up at 10 inches by 15 3/4 for the lining. And as I said, the zipper, you could get by with a 12 inch for this size. And then what you're going to need is some interfacing. I'm using SF 101, and I'm going to put that onto my outer fabric. So there are other interfacings that you could certainly use. Anything lightweight. I thought maybe somebody might ask if you could quilt it. You could, but you're going to have a lot of bulk in the sides because we're doing French seams. So I would stay away from anything that's thick or heavy. So as you can see, this doesn't go to the edges. I've cut this at 9 inches wide by 15 1/4 to give myself room on all 4 sides. And I'm going to get that where it needs to be. No, there's a piece of thread there somewhere. There it is. All right. So once we get this attached, we can start. And this is the simplest bag ever, but it's a great use for the lace zippers. You can really see the lace zipper on these, which is why they're popular, I guess, for that style. I want to get some different lace, like the one I like what I have here, these ones. They're beautiful. I want something different. I want something with maybe hearts or something different. All right. Anyway, so what we're going to do first, see, now this is all interfaced. So this is a little bit stiffer feeling. We're going to put right sides facing. All right, and I want you to pin or clip right up here at the top. Just make sure everything is even along here. And we're going to sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to flip it around this way. Now remember, that's a little bit shorter, but it's okay. Just bring that up to match it and pin or clip it into place. So I am going to take this over as soon as I'm done pinning, and I'm going to sew it with my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you're going to sew here and here. Your shorter ends, just your ends, are going to be sewn. All right, that didn't take long at all. And as I said, this is probably the quickest zippered bag one could ever make. Okay, so now I'm going to press. I want this end here to be nice. So usually I start by ironing it to one side and then opening to press it flat, because our zipper is going on this end, so we need it to be neat. So I'm just opening that seam up, because when I flip this right side out, I want to be able to fold that into a nice flat piece where I want it to be. Get the other one done. I was going to use a different interfacing than the SF101, but I just got done cutting it all this morning to make key fobs. So, and it really doesn't matter. There's so many different ones you could choose. So don't worry about not, having, if you don't have SF101, it's not a do or die. Just drop my zipper. Okay. Now, this is what you should have. That's what it looks like. Now flip it. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, give you guys a little bit more. There we go. A little bit more of a look at what we're doing here. Okay. So this is where I want you to kind of pay attention pretty closely right there. This is where we just pressed. Now I'm working with a directional fabric, and this bag, because of how it's done, directions could be an issue depending. Now here's my sample, I guess. So you can see that if the stars were directional one way, then when they came, like the back of it would be here and it would flip up this way. But where this is a scrap bag, I didn't worry about the orientation of anything. I just simply put the scraps together. And I really like how that little ridge of red fell at the bottom. I thought it looked kind of nice. But anyway, just be careful if you're using a directional fabric. Okay, so the easiest way I've found for the ends is to just work it like this and flatten it between your fingers before you press. And you definitely don't need to do more than a quick press on this. We're going to attach our zipper next. So here we have, I have cherry fabric, and so I want to make sure that these are right side up, okay? I don't want it upside down. I'm going to take my zipper, because it has to go this way. I want it to open from left to right. Okay. Now you could use pins, you can use glue, you could use clips. I find that pins help hold this together better. Now I do have glue and I have used glue before, but I don't feel it's necessarily needed. What you do want to do is place your zipper just like this. Right side is facing up of the fabric and right side is facing up of your zipper. Now, you know that that's going to open like this. You don't want the teeth to be down against this fabric, okay? So make sure to place it on here. What I do first is I pin it just to take a look. Then I turn it over. I just want to make sure that that is going to clear when that zipper pull goes past it. So just pin it into place. I know a lot of people like the clips, and I do use them. Actually, I just used some the other day. It's not that I don't use them, but I don't feel on this, especially if you are a beginner zipper maker, I do not feel that the clips would hold a lace zipper where it needs to be, because as I said, you have to be careful where you're placing that. So now I'm going to double check. I don't want anything amiss there because I don't want to rip out my stitches. So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine. I'm going to take my zipper foot. In fact, I'll probably show you guys this one because I'm going to take my zipper foot and I'm going to show you how to get between this edge and then the scalloped edge. So we'll meet over at the machine. All right, here we are at the machine, and I almost forgot that I bought a new zipper foot a month or so ago, and I am going to try using that because it's more narrow. This is my regular zipper foot, and this one is my new one. So let me lay those out so hopefully you can see the difference. And they both have little indentations on each side, so you could change your needle position and things such as that. I'm going to give this narrow one a try. I did try it on a zippered bag a few weeks ago. It gave me a little bit wider of a place than what I'm used to having, but it worked out all right. And it's just a matter, I think, of me getting used to it. All right. So let's see what we have. I start a little bit back. Now I have my needle position, so it's going over on the left side. And I'm going to pull up that first thread. I have red in my bobbin because I'm using a red fabric behind me. So such as that. Now I'm using a 2.5 millimeter stitch length. You can use whatever you feel comfortable with. And I am just letting this little foot sit right alongside my zipper. And before I get to the pin, I'm pulling it out. Definitely, you don't want to run over it, but also when you're doing a zipper, you need everything out of the way, or it can kind of fold or get in the way of your zipper. So every time I pull a pin, see, it kind of straightens that up a little bit. We're just going to go straight across. I'm going to take this last pin out, and I'm going to peek underneath just to make sure that it's lined up where I want it. Now that looks nice. All right, we'll go to the table and set up the other side. All right, we'll take our threads and snip those. A couple more. And these zippers are so pretty. I love them. I bought the bag of them a while back, and I don't know why I haven't used more of them. Okay, so your right side, put it down so your lining is up, and fold this in. Now you want to keep this so that your sides are even. And it doesn't matter how far down you bring it at this point, because we're just sewing the zipper. We're not doing the placement on the, like this. We're not worrying about how far down it is from the top right now. We're just simply placing the zipper for our next seam. So you want to make sure that these are lined up. And then you're going to do the same thing. And what I do here again, I put a pin when I think I have the side evened up. I'm not worrying about where the zipper teeth are at this moment. I'm just worrying about side to side. So I'm going to put a little bit of a pin and hold it. Then I'm going to open the zipper and check out. Now see, that would have been way too close to the teeth, but it just held the zipper where I needed it to be. So I'm going to bring that down. And this is a lot of judgment call on these lace zippers, because it depends. You know, you could have it quite a ways from your zipper, or you could have it fairly close. And as long as that zipper pull is going to go past there, you know that you're good. And I could go a little bit closer, not a lot. And you know, I have seen people do this with not using any pins, just holding the lace zipper on there. I am not that brave. I get too nervous that I'm going to ruin a zipper. I guess it wouldn't ruin it. It would more or less make you have to take your stitches out and do it again, though. And that's never fun. And what I do before I commit to sewing this in place on the second side is I always try the zipper and make sure it's going to work. Because as you know, in a lot of cases when you're working with a zipper, you can't check it. You just have to hope that you've done it correctly. All right, I'm going to give this a try. Oops, I caught on a thread. Oh, there. Now that worked very well. Okay, so I know that that is going to go on there well. So I won't show you on the second side because you already saw me do the first. I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch along here. And I will meet you right back here. And that was short and sweet. Quick little seam. Boy, I seem to be fraying a lot. Okay. Now we have a zippered bag. Starting to look like one, isn't it? All right. So now is the time to decide how far down you want your lace zipper. If you wanted something like a fairly flat bag, like a pencil case, you could put it in the middle. There's just a lot of different ways you could go with this. Personally, I like mine up. I think I'm going to go a little higher on that one. Just about like that. So I'm going to press. You want to be careful around that lace zipper because those can and do melt. Open your zipper. Okay. I'm going to pin near the zipper, okay? Like, say you've got here, you see where the teeth need to be? Pin that right there in that area. Now we're going to switch our foot. We don't need, well, you could do it with a zipper foot, but you need a 1/4 inch seam allowance at this point. We're going to sew down both sides with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to back tack, sew, back tack, and the same on the other side. And here we are. All right, I've changed to my 1/4 inch foot. And I line that up with the right side. Back tack, and away I go. And I'm using a 2.5 millimeter stitch length. And I know I probably don't need to, but I go back and forth once on the zipper. But we'll do that again because we're making a French seam. So we will be going over the zipper again. Same thing on the other side. And when you're coming up onto the zipper, just be mindful of where your zipper teeth are. I'll stop in just a moment. Okay. Now I'm trying to look very carefully at where my zipper teeth are. I don't want them to overlap at all. I want them to just be flat, just like this. I've got them flat. Okay. And that way we know exactly where they are. Because if they're overlapped at all, that's not going to finish out well. It would not be good. I'll show you in just a moment how neat that looks. Get it in the light, I guess. Let's see. Can you see that? So, you know, we wouldn't want it to be overlapping at all. All right, let's go back over to the table for a moment. All right, so I'll remove my pins. And I always like to trim up my sides because I don't like to have the errant little strings like, you know, the fraying of the fabric or whatever. I don't want that to be sticking out of my seam allowance. So trim all your threads carefully. And then I'm going to show you what I do. I know not everybody does it this way, but if you're flying with me, I'm going to show you how I do it, and then you can do it whatever way you please. All right, first off, there are no sewing police at Marie's Scrappy Creations. This is my old rotary cutter. It has an old blade, actually a blade that I hit with I hit a pin the other day when sewing, so that blade went in the way. All right, so what I'm doing is I am trimming not quite 1/8 of an inch off this side just to neaten it up. So make sure of where your seam allowance is. Now see that little bit that I took off there? That's not much at all. Not much at all. Okay, and while you're right here, open that zipper up at least 2/3 of the way over. And again, I'm going to just trim up a little bit of this. I just want it to be neat. And more than anything, it just removes some of those strings from the side edges. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to flip it wrong side out. And this is where I use my turning tool, or whatever you want to call it, and I poke my corners out carefully because I want them nice and neat. The bag will lay much nicer and look more professional and finished if your corners are poked out well. So you wouldn't want anything other than a corner. All right. And I like to press at this point. So that's what we're going to do. It helps to hold everything nice and flat. And you can only get so close to that zipper. You don't want to melt anything such as that. And then I flip. I was just going to say you want to be careful because on the end it can get folded up, and it did. I just pull that up out of there a little bit. Don't want to have that down in there. And I am going to press this because we need the sides pressed just a bit. Not so much the top, we just need the sides pressed. Okay. I'm going to close my zipper. I don't want my zipper all the way open, okay? I want to be able to sew right here. And if my zipper was all the way down, that wouldn't be going over there. All right. I'm going to flatten that down. Press it down between my thumb and my finger. Make sure you don't have any ripples on the back. Now come over to your other side and do the same thing. So the first thing I do is pin to hold that right where I want it. Because when I come over here and I sew, I don't want a gap. Okay? I don't want this to be gapped open, and I don't want it to overlap. I want it to lay very neatly. So I'll put a pin in there. And then when I get over to the sewing machine, and as it gets closer, as the foot gets closer to it, I'll know more. But that looks like it's going to go very well. So now we're going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And we're going to back tack down, back tack, and down. Let's go give that a go. Okay, so I have moved my needle a little bit to the left. If you don't have a machine that has a different needle position, just measure where your 1/2 inch seam allowance is. I'm going to start here. I'm going to drop my needle, pull that thread. That's just what I do. Whoops, when I can. Usually when I film, I get it the wrong way, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Because If I'm not filming, I grab it the first time and I get it the right way without losing a bunch of thread like this time. All right, and again, I am using a 2.5 millimeter stitch length. And here my zipper is holding together exactly, it's placed exactly where I want it to be. Now I'm going to go back and forth 3 or 4 times. Oops, the pin police, I just sewed over a pin. They're gonna come get me now. Trim my threads while I'm right here. And again, we'll go from one end to the other. There, nice short piece of thread. That's perfect. And if your machine has, you know, any kind of problem with the zippers, just go slow. As long as you're slow. See, I would go like this. If my machine were one that didn't do zippers well, see, I could just slow it down like that. And I'm going to go back and forth. But usually most machines are doing pretty well on zippers. I did have one a few years ago, and it was a pretty cheap machine, but it did not like sewing over zippers at all. So I know it can happen. Okay, I'm going to snip my threads, and I'm going to meet you back over at the table. Okay, we're back over here. I'll get that pin that I'd forgotten, and we're going to flip this out because we're done. So this is a French seamed bag. So you do see the seam inside your bag, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Oops, I still had a string caught up. Oop. Get out of there. I'm going to give this a press. Poke it out with my fingers, and then I use Sally, my little wooden stick. For any of you new people, the reason I call her Sally is she has a little face on her. She was just a little wooden knob we found in some craft supplies that we purchased secondhand. And my husband made her into my little tool. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that the sides, that those seams are nice and neat. I'm going to press. And I've got some steam on here. If I have any water left, I don't know. Yep, I do. Just let the steam do the work. Now, there are different ways you could finish this. I've made them where I've put a pocket on the front. You can do that. You could put a wrist straplet. You could put a wristlet strap. There's a lot of different ways you could finish this, but it's a very simple, straightforward zippered bag that allows you to use your lace zippers. And who doesn't love that, right? Who doesn't love that? I love the zippers. I want to get some new ones, and I have plenty in that package I bought. I just want something different, but I am going to make a bunch of these bags up. I really like them. I think they're a cute little thing, and they could be used for so many different things. So I want to thank you for hanging out with me today here at Marie's Scrappy Creations. And because we have cherries on this fabric, our word of the day is going to be cherry. Okay, and until next time, dig into that scrap pile Be kind. The world needs more of that. And I'll see you next time right here at Marie's Scrappy Creations. Bye-bye.